Hi guys, in this episode of the Nostalgia Trip, I am gonna be once again doing a Nostalgia Pick episode. And as you can see by the title, I'm gonna be doing the top 18 episodes of the Transformers Armada series. A series that is near and dear to my heart. It's not necessarily my favorite Transformers series, although it is very much up there. I haven't really thought which one is my favorite. I guess we're gonna figure it out as I go through them on the channel eventually, but I do love it quite a lot, and I've been actually meaning to do this video for quite a while. I wasn't necessarily planning to do it back when I was reacting to the show in early 2020, but I've been meaning to do it at least since I did the video for the TMNT 2003 series last year. So it's been in the making for quite a while. And one of the reasons why, it's because it was kind of hard to pick out which episodes of this show deserve to be on a list like this. For several reasons. It's been quite a while since I reacted to the show, so I've kind of forgotten which moments were like the most impactful, which episodes were the most interesting and engaging. And the second reason is, this is not really a show that has like good episodes. It's more of a show that has good moments, if that makes any sense. Because like, I feel like it's really common in the show that you might have like a really cool and really memorable moment in an otherwise mediocre or even kind of shitty episodes. Don't get me wrong, there are some episodes as a whole that are really good, as you're gonna see once we get through the list a little bit. But by and large, it's more of a cool moments based show rather than cool episodes one. But it is a really fun show nonetheless, and I can't wait to get through the whole list. And since it's a decently long list and I don't want to make this video longer than it has to be, let's just get into it with number 18, episode 42, Miracle. So, if I gotta be honest, this episode almost didn't really make the cut for this list for several reasons. Yes, it is a fun episode. Yes, it has some cool interactions between characters, cool moments, cool action. It's not necessarily a bad episode, but it's more so what happens in the episode, what is the consequence of this episode that kind of bothers me. And that is, for those of you who haven't seen it, the fact that Optimus gets brought back in this episode after getting killed like 3 episodes before, I think, or something along those lines, which is just kind of dumb on its own. But the fact that it's not really quite explained how he even gets brought back, like it's not like it was necessarily set up beforehand that they could do this, just kind of ruins it. And even in the episode itself, it's kind of ambiguous about how the hell does he get rebirth. Like, there's a lot of things about it that are just kind of weird like that. And personally, the biggest reason that I'm not necessarily too big of a fan of this episode is that it kind of ruins the weight of the episodes in which Optimus does get destroyed. Like a couple of episodes earlier. And the fact that right now I realize how close those 2 episodes are just makes me that much more mad. Because it hasn't been even a couple of episodes and you already bring him back. Considering that that was one of the coolest things that this show did, and one of the things that even people who maybe do not necessarily love this show commend it for. It's just kind of shitty to bring him back, but I do think it's an important moment in the story, and I think it's important to be commended considering that there's so many inconsequential episodes in this show. Otherwise, I think it did deserve to be on this list. Because honestly, at the end of the day, the episodes up till the number 10 spot are kind of a glorified honorable mention anyway. Yes, I do like them, but it's the they're not necessarily as good as the actual top 10. I just like doing more episodes than just a simple top 10, because I just like talking about more episodes, you know? But yeah, cool episode, questionable consequences that it has, but overall I think it's pretty good and pretty commendable. So now let's get into number 17 with episode 52, Mortal Kombat. Yep, the finale of this series ended up on this list. I mean, there's no way it wouldn't have. Because I feel like whatever the quality of a show is, I feel like most shows do end up having good finales, more or less. At least from the shows that I've covered on the channel so far, the only show that has had kind of a shitty finale was the TMNT 2003 series, and even for that one, the more proper finale, which was the season 5 finale, is pretty good. Like, most people consider that the finale of the series, and the 6th and 7th season kind of like a sequel thing, because the main story of the series does kind of get finished in the 5th season, so it still kind of works as it having a good finale. And obviously I had to add it here because even outside of it being a finale, it's a pretty cool episode, because you have a really cool final fight between Optimus and Galvatron, in which they go all out, and Optimus beats the shit out of Galvatron and breaks parts of his body. It does kind of have the energy that we see in the live action movies, which I'm really happy about that in retrospect. I love the moment where Galvatron sacrifices himself, kind of praising Optimus for being a good leader in that moment, essentially. It's a really cool moment, and honestly, maybe I could have put this episode higher because of that. And also because of the really cool moment where Hotshot basically leads both the Autobots and the Decepticons to go and save Optimus and Galvatron. Like, it's a really cool evolution for his character, where he starts off as the immature Hotshot, but he becomes a true leader of both the Autobots and the Decepticons. It is really, really cool. And honestly, I don't really have any hung up when it comes to this episode. I do think it's a really, really cool one. It's just that I guess some of the other ones are better than this one, you know? But yeah, it's a cool episode. I do really, really like it quite a lot. But I feel like, I guess, just like how it is about Optimus getting brought back, what exactly happens to Galvatron, it's not quite clear. And based on what I know about the Unicron trilogy, and I guess what I don't know, I feel like it is kind of like Optimus's death, in the sense that he supposedly dies, but he's not quite dead, you know? But yeah, still pretty cool episode, definitely deserves to be on this list. For episode 16, we're going to have another episode from later on in the series, that being episode 43, Puppet. So this episode, for the most part, is actually, I don't know, kind of an eventful. Like, we do have the Nemesis Prime in it, and that is really, really cool and really fun to see. But I always felt like there was just something missing to it. Like, he is cool, and I love how powerful he is and how he basically wrecks everybody. But at the same time, I feel like he's just kind of there. Like, it doesn't really contribute to anything. It doesn't really lead to anything. He's just kind of like a freak of the week kind of thing, which could work, but I feel like that's not really what the show was. Like, I feel like outside of this, the show is overall kind of serialized, especially in this part of the series. So to have an episode like this here just kind of feels out of nowhere, and it feels like it was done just because it's part of like a source material or something. But it is a cool battle that our characters have with him in it. And like I said, I love how he wrecks everybody up and how that leads to the color palette swap for some of the main Autobots, like Hotshot, Red Alert, Demolisher, Galvatron, and Starscream. I'm pretty sure that's all 5 that got their colors changed. And I still honestly, after all these years, don't know how I feel about the color swap. Because I feel like their original colors in my mind are so iconic, and I do love them quite a lot. Which, by the way, is something that I kind of forgot to mention before. I feel like Transformers Armada, for one reason or another, maybe because it was the show that I watched as a kid, like the Transformers series that I watched as a kid, but the way that the Transformers look in that series, I think it's the best design of any series of Transformers. Like, there's something about them where they're pretty complicated but not over designed, that just really hits that sweet spot between it. And just something about their angular designs are just so sick to me, and I love it. Like I think I'm pretty sure I said it in my reactions to the series, but I would love to have all of the Transformers from this series as toys. I haven't really even looked about how expensive it would be to find any online. I don't even know if there's any online, but goddamn would I love to get my hands on some of those. It would be really fucking cool. So yeah, like I said, the original designs of those characters are so iconic to me, and I love them so much that I still don't know how I feel about the palette swaps. They're not bad, but and they are definitely kind of fun and refreshing, and I do like them both, the original ones and the new ones. But yeah, I'm just, I guess, kind of mixed on it. I kind of both like it and still prefer the original ones, you know? But yeah, still, overall, pretty fun episode. So for number 15, we're gonna have episode 49, Alliance. So this is the reason why I put this episode on this list. The biggest reason is really honestly because this is the episode where the Autobots and the Decepticons join hands to fight against Unicron and destroy Unicron. And the biggest reason why it's so cool, because we've had 48 episodes of build-up with fights between the two factions. So to see them join hands like this at the end is just so sick. Like, maybe not all of the 48 episodes before these were really, really cool, but having such an amount of time where you have one status quo to then change it to a different one like this is just so satisfying, regardless of whether the 48 episodes were good or not. So, it's just commendable, and I really, really like seeing the good guys and the bad guys working together, and it's cool to see more of the Decepticons kind of talk to the kids as well. It's just a really, really cool episodes in that regard. Plus, we finally see the final transformed form of Unicron, which, by the way, I really like the idea of Unicron. And even as a kid, it kind of was such mind-blowingly obvious twist when I watched it. Because, like, duh, Unicron would be their fucking moon, because it just makes sense. He's a transformer. Like, the fact that their moon is a transformer as well just kind of makes sense when you think about it. And I dig it. I love it quite a lot. Although I still have not really delved enough into the Transformers lore to really figure out how the hell are Transformers, like, created, and how the hell is their planet made out of metal structures as much as it is. Like, what is the origin of their existence? It's something cool that I definitely would love to know. So if you guys know it being mentioned in any TMNT cartoon, please comment the name of it down below. But yeah, pretty cool episode. At number 14, we're gonna have episode 51, Origin. So this is again another episode which was a little weaker in terms of its quality, because it only has like a couple of really cool moments, but I feel like those moments, like I said earlier, were really cool and deserved. So this is one of those episodes which I explained in the beginning are not really that great per se, but have cool moments in them. And this is also the episode where they defeat Unicron, so it does kind of feel like it should have been a really good episode. But realistically, the only good parts of this episode are the moments where the Minicons finally decide to fight back for themselves against Unicron. And it is a really cool moment, seeing them make out the shape of Unicron, especially with what we learned in other episodes, where we learned that they are his cells, so they are basically his children in a way. It's just really cool of a moment. I love the moment where the kids, all the Minicons, Optimus, and Galvatron all get captured by Unicron with those like weirdly organic little things. Like the way they kind of portray it with the art style is honestly kind of freaky, and I kind of dig it. So this episode does have cool moments like that, and I feel like as a whole, the plot development that happens is the biggest reason why this episode deserves to be on this list. But by and large, it is not necessarily the best episode of the show. But that's also why it's not a top 10 episodes. Instead, it's a number 14 episode. So yeah, it is pretty cool though. I do like it a lot. And I guess there's also the defeat of Unicron, but that is kind of like the weakest part of it, because I feel like he gets kind of taken out a little bit too easily, literally just by the minicons depowering him, because I guess maybe he was getting powered a lot by the Requiem blaster, the sword, and the shield. And then those minicons get freed in this episode, so that was kind of annoying and anticlimactic, but other than that, it is a pretty fun episode, so there's that. So yeah, at number 13, we're gonna have a really, really cool episode, actually, that being episode 46, Drift. So, this is kind of a mindfuck of an episode, if I gotta be honest. I still don't really quite understand exactly what it tells us and what the fuck happens in this episode, but I do like it quite a lot. If we start off from the fact of how the story gets pushed in this episode with Starscream basically dying to the Requiem blaster thanks to Trust. He gets shot by it, and for whatever reason that causes the kids to travel back in time to the early days of the existence of Unicron and the Autobots and the Decepticons, back when they were still being created or born. I mean, it's not quite clear, because you have a bunch of our characters like the Autobots and the Decepticons basically being absorbed by Unicron, even though they're supposed to be getting born at that point, but then Hotshot, in that alternative reality, past, whatever you want to call it, explains that they figured out that Unicron was the moon all along, so it does kind of feel like an alternative timeline or whatever. But then you have the kids actually interacting with their personal minicons back in the past, which is what makes them travel to Earth to meet with the kids, which somehow leads to time reversing itself so Starscream doesn't die to the Requiem blaster. It's really goddamn confusing, but kind of that's why I love it. Because I'm a huge sucker for time travel stuff, especially mindfucky time travel stuff like this. It's really cool, and it's one of those episodes that just makes me think about again and again and again, no matter how many times I've seen it. And it's a really cool episode. Like, it is a really, really fun episode. And easily could have been a 10 out of 10 episode if I actually got, like, an explanation of exactly what happened in this episode. Because how the fuck did the blaster cause them to travel back in time? How did time reverse to the point where Starscream got saved? Like, I still don't get those things, and those things do drag the episode back a little bit, but yeah, overall it's honestly really, really fun. At number 12, we're gonna have episode 45, Dash. Yes, I know some of you are noticing how many of these episodes are so close together in the last batch of episodes of this series, but it's not my fault that the best episodes of this show are honestly at the end of it. It's something that happened also with another series which I covered on the channel, which has about the same amount of episodes, that being Fullmetal Alchemist. Once I get to doing the top list for that show, you see how a lot of the episodes of that show that I really, really enjoy in retrospect are in the second half. But yeah, this is another really cool episode in the development here, where around this time in the series we are learning more and more about Unicron, and we're having the Autobots wanting to join forces with the Decepticons to defeat Unicron. And this is the episode which has Hotshot go to Galvatron and try to convince him about the existence of Unicron and the threat that it poses. And it's just really cool to me how in this episode Hotshot is the one that wants to do that, and how humble he is as well when he goes to Galvatron. And it really leads to some really cool character interactions close to the end of the episodes, where you have Galvatron actually be willing to hear out what Hotshot has to say, and even defends him when Thrust decides to kind of attack him or prevent him from saying anything. So that is really cool, and that whole sequence towards the end of the episode where you have everybody learning that Thrust was actually Unicron's lackey all this time, and has been for a while, and has been manipulating everybody. It's really cool. Like the character interactions, the dialogue there is so damn cool. Like, say whatever you want about these shows' quality, but there is some actual really cool character stuff in it, especially in the second half. Man, I love that. I love it. This is the show at its best in my eyes. I love it. Those interactions there where Starscream, after going through this whole development over the course of the series, from a simple lackey to somebody who thinks for themselves, to somebody who joins the Autobots, to somebody who willingly decides to go with the Decepticons once again, to somebody who decides to fight for good regardless, and then to somebody who sacrifices themselves, is so cool. And in this particular episode, he, with all that he's been through, still has allegiance to the Decepticons, and even calls out Thrust for manipulating him. Like, that is really, really cool to me. It was really, really cool of an episode, and I like it a lot. Plus, you have Wheeljack as well in this episode, kind of being on both sides. Like, it is not clear in this part of the series whether he's a double agent at that point or not. I feel like he, very much like Starscream, is kind of pledges allegiance to the Decepticons because they saved his life, as we learned in his introduction episode. But I love how he still considers himself a Decepticon at this point, but he still believes in good. Just like the Autobots, and wants the two to join forces. So he is sad when Hotshot doesn't necessarily manage to convince Galvatron about the threat of Unicron or whatever, but that is a really cool moment, and how both of them end up chasing Thrust, who stole the blaster and the shield. Like, that is really cool. I really like this episode quite a lot. But talking about Wheeljack, that brings me to number 11, episode 31 and 32, The Past. So yeah, this is gonna be the only two-parter that is on the list, and I'm pretty sure it's the only two-parter in the series anyway, which is a shame because it's honestly actually really good. I feel like certain things about this show, like there might have been some episodes that would have been better if they had two parts, because I feel like this actually added to the weight of Wheeljack, who I even remember when I was a kid that I really, really liked him a lot. Although, in retrospect, when I rewatched it, after having been introduced to... I forgot what was the name of that Autobot, who is like the racing car guy. That gets introduced, like his name is like Fog or Mist or something, or Steam, I don't know, something along those lines. It is after his introduction, where he kind of clashes with Hotshot. Then you have Sideswipe as introduction, who also is kind of a racing car and has a relationship with Hotshot. Having another one, kind of like a fast car Transformer, have some kind of relationship with Hotshot, did kind of start to get old at this point. But I feel like this one is pretty cool. I like the story. Obviously, I feel like it could have been better done, because other than the backstory, which they kind of repeat quite a lot in this two-parter, I feel like there isn't too much depth to it. But the fact that even attempted to have something with this kind of depth is really cool. Like, the fact that in the early 2000s, even as shitty of a cartoon as this still has kind of this kind of dark moments, it's just kind of sad, because in this day and age, we don't really get shit like that, and it's really, really annoying. But that is kind of a topic for a completely different video. So yeah, really cool episode, really cool backstory. I like the relationship that Wheeljack has with Hotshot. I like how he doesn't necessarily get left behind, but Hotshot is just not allowed to go and save him, and he gets saved by the Decepticons, and he pledges allegiance to them. Like, it adds some layers to the dynamic between Autobots and Decepticons, and it's really, really cool, and I like it. So now we are finally getting into the top 10 episodes of this show. Starting off with number 10, episode 29, Desperate. So this is one of those episodes again which it's less good and more it has good moments in it. In particular, it has two really, really cool moments. One is when one of the minicons that makes the Requiem Blaster starts singing this very, I don't know what to really describe it, but like really soulful melody. Like, that's one of the things that I remember from when I watched it as a kid, and I remember it making me emotional. So it really did a good job at making that thing evoke the emotion that it should have. Because that singing that the minicons do is supposed to evoke like sadness, and it's like a cry for help and for peace, and I do really, really like it. And that is the first time I think that we ever hear it. Plus, with the foreboding nature, with the nature of what the Requiem Blaster is, there is this foreboding feeling that you feel whenever you hear this song, because it's always when it's something really, really important happening and really heavy. So that adds another level to it as well, and I love that melody. And obviously we have the moment where Optimus, like a badass, uses the Requiem Blaster to save himself from falling from a really big height. Even though, why the hell would he not survive, especially considering he was falling in water anyway? I don't know, but it is a really cool moment when he uses the blaster to shoot at the ground to land safely. It is super freaking badass. So yeah, not much to say about this episode, and honestly, in retrospect, I could definitely see this episode being a little bit lower compared to some other episodes getting a little bit higher, but I still like it quite a lot. I still think it's good, and it's definitely one of those episodes that really impacted me when I was a child, so I do still think it deserves to be in the top 18 episodes, you know? But yeah, at number 9, we're gonna have an episode that I really, really like quite a lot, that being episode 36, Mars. So, I assume you know which episode that is in particular, because it's a very obvious one, but that is the episode where there's a minicon on Mars for whatever reason, and it's the episode where we get finally some character development from Starscream now that he has joined the Autobots. For once, this is the first time where he actually like admits and feels like he is part of the Autobots. He accepts that he is an Autobot now. And again, just like with the episode where we get Optimus revived, it kind of feels annoying that couple of episodes afterwards that development gets kind of ruined because he does end up going back with the Decepticons. But it is a really cool episode, and it's a really cool moment in this episode when he talks to the Minicon who is under the threat of being captured by the Decepticons and convinces him to protect himself and to choose not to be a Decepticon and save himself from being a Decepticon, because if he does get captured by the Decepticons, then he has to work for them or something. I don't know. I never really understood why, just because they get captured by either the good guys or the bad guys, they are forced to work with them. I guess they kind of have no choice in the matter, but still, I don't know. I think when I was a kid, I assumed it was some kind of programming which gets activated depending on who finds the minicon. Like, if it's the good guys, they don't have the programming, but if it's the bad guys, they get like reprogrammed to serve them or whatever. But it is a really cool moment, and I love the whole episode, how there's this kind of issue between Jetfire and Starscream, because they were the only two Transformers who could have went to Mars, who had the means to go to Mars to save the minicons. So they're kind of forced to work together, but Jetfire being basically the second in command of the Autobots, and Starscream being the newbie double agent, or whatever you want to call it, like the newbie heel turn, good guy, bad guy turn good. There's some tension there, and I do really like it quite a lot. It is pretty cool. So for the next two episodes that I'm gonna be mentioning, I do want to preface and tell you that we are kind of starting to get into some of the episodes which I am more nostalgic about rather than I think they are necessarily good. But at the same time, I do kind of feel like they are good considering how much I actually have to say about those episodes. But yeah, these episodes are gonna be episodes from some of the first DVDs of Transformers that I got. Pretty sure one episode from this one and one episode from this one. So I've watched them a lot, and yeah, I just feel nostalgic watching them. It brings me back to those times when I was a kid when I watched them originally. With one of those episodes being at number 8, episode 13, Swoop. So that's the episode where the Decepticons get into the Autobot base for the first time, and it's really kind of funny how quickly they ended up getting into the base of the Autobots, and yet how long it takes for the Autobots to go to the Decepticon base. I think the earliest the Autobots go to the Decepticon base must be like around episode 20 something, when Hotshot and what was his name? The guy who is actually Unicron. Like I don't quite remember everybody's goddamn names, but in that episode where Hotshot and Sideways end up going to the base, which I think ends up with Hotshot losing the Star Saber or something along those lines. It was, I don't know. It's been a while since I watched it, but it is kind of funny in retrospect how long it takes the Autobots to go to the Decepticons base. And honestly, the truly meaningful time where they actually do invade the base in the same manner that the Decepticons do here is when they take back the Minicons. So, yeah. But the reason why this episode is really good, besides just general nostalgia factor, is for quite a few things. There's quite a few funny moments in this episode. I love all the character interactions and all the ways that the Decepticons get dealt with by the different Autobots. I love that this is the episode where the two other main kid characters get put into the group, like Billy and Fred. Like, this is the episode where they join the group officially, so that's really cool. This is the episode where Hotshot gets the Star Saber and becomes a badass, so that is really cool. But yeah, in general, it is a nostalgia factor why I love this episode, but it just has so much fun moments and memories that I have of watching it that I just couldn't not put it on this list, you know. But yeah, now at number 7, we're gonna have another very nostalgia-filled episode for me, that being episode 4, Comrade. So yeah, this was truly the first ever Transformers Armada episode that I saw, because it's the first episode on this DVD. And I have a soft spot for it. Just like for the last one, there's a lot of cool moments that I like. I love how every one of the kids get paired with the different Transformers and go through different hijinks. Lots of cool moments, like the flipping of Red Alert on top of Demolisher, I think it was. Like, there's a lot of cool interactions like that. I love Rat's whole character in this episode. In a way, it's kind of really fun to me with how at first he isn't sure how the hell are they gonna go with the Autobots. So they get given these really cool suits. And by the way, I love the transformation sequence there. It kind of feels very magical girl transformation like. I kind of dig it quite a lot, honestly. That's a cool way to get dressed, is what I'm trying to say. I just love how whiny he is in this episode. This is also the episode where Perceptor gets created, who is made out of the 3 Minicons of the kids. So that is really cool as well. We get Optimus's personal Minicon. So that's really cool as well. Like I said, a lot of really cool moments like that, plus a little bit of nostalgia factor, makes this episode a really, really cool one for me. For number 6, we actually have genuinely one of my favorite episodes of this show. Like, easily could be my favorite episode of this show. That being episode 34, Regeneration. This is the episode where Starscream finally leaves the Decepticons and ends up joining the Autobots. We had a little bit of build-up when it comes to this episode. I think in an earlier episode where Starscream kind of questioned his purpose in life and what's the point of pretty much their existence and why they are fighting, what they're fighting for. But this is the episode where after he gets left behind in a previous episode by Thrust, he fights back against him and kind of lashes out against the Decepticons. And then when he learns that thanks to because of Trust, Megatron doesn't even respect him anymore, he decides to quit the Decepticons and goes off to join the Autobots. He even throws the Star Sword to Optimus, which is a really, really cool moment in this episode. And then he ends up joining the Autobots when his own Minicons, which, by the way, he was also treating them nicely than the other Decepticons treat their own Minicons, kind of showing that he's not quite as much of a piece of shit as the other Decepticons. They do not allow him to leave the Autobot base, so he does get accepted into the fold. And we have a really cool emotional fight between him and Hotshot at the end of the episode, where Hotshot still feels angry for Hoist's death in a way, because he does get completely destroyed in a previous episode by the Requiem Blaster. So Hotshot blames Starscream, and they have the really cool fight at the end of the episode, which does get interrupted by Hoist, who introduces his new body, which does look really cool. I do kind of dig it more than his previous one, but I'm going to talk about that more later. So yeah, really cool episode, really emotionally really emotional episode, really emotionally satisfying episode for me, because even when I was a kid, like, Starscream always felt like really interesting, and like he was more three-dimensional than the other Decepticons, and the way he was being mistreated multiple times in multiple episodes, like in that one episode where he gets his first Minicon, for example. It just felt like very cathartic that he finally left them. And I really, really enjoyed it, you know? And yeah, this nicely brings us into the next spot on our list, number 5, with episode 48, Cramp. So yeah, as you saw, this is the episode where Starscream dies. And it's actually, I think, either the second highest or the highest viewed reaction a video that I did on the Transformers Armada series, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it is a really, really cool moment, and it's honestly kind of the emotional finale of the show for me in a way, because Starscream, as I was watching it, and even when I was a kid, like, was one of my favorite characters. And when I was rewatching it, he definitely was like the core of the show. He is in a way the main character of it, and he has the most depth, he's the most three-dimensional. It's just he's a really cool character, and to see him sacrifice himself to make Galvatron and Optimus join forces against Unicron together, it's just such a really cool and really emotional moment. And I really love the music that plays during that scene as well. It's just so damn good. And again, after what I feel was maybe a couple of missteps with his characters when he went back to the Decepticons, I think it still works, but it does feel kind of annoying that he did get back to the Decepticons so quickly. If at least we got like 10 or 15 episodes between him joining the Autobots and then leaving for the Decepticons again, it could have worked. But after going through all of that with his characters, to finally have him truly, this time for real, accept Optimus as the best and true leader of the Transformers, and deciding to join forces for real this time with him, is a really cool moment for him, and I really, really like it. Plus, I really like the talk between him and Galvatron when they do have their fight, when Galvatron essentially kind of kills him, almost, where Starscream essentially explains to Galvatron the reason why he, I guess, left the Decepticons because Optimus was a better leader than Galvatron, and treated his men better and respected them more than Galvatron ever did. And that's all Starscream wanted out of him, respect. And he never really got that. Although I feel like Galvatron did kind of respect him at his death. I'm pretty sure there is even like a moment where he does accept that, but yeah. It's a really cool moment, not necessarily as much of an episode, because again, I feel like at the end of the series, there's too much of plot stuff happening in every episode. It's like there's so much continuity from episode to episode that this doesn't feel like a standalone necessarily. It just feels like a part 2 or a part 3 or a part 4 or whatever. So it's kind of hard to distinguish all of those episodes at the end there from one another. So I can kind of only go by moments. And this is a really cool moment, debatably the coolest moment in the series. And I love it. It is definitely one of my favorite episodes, as you can see. So at number 4, we're gonna have, you guessed it, another Starscream focused episode. That being episode 35, Rescue. So yeah, that is the episode where the Autobots finally rescue all of the Minicons that the Decepticons captured over the course of the series. And I love it for many reasons. Like I said earlier, I love that the Autobots finally invade the Decepticon base, just like how the Decepticons did earlier in the series. It's another cool moment where you see like the consequences of Starscream switching sides, and it just leads to a lot of cool moments, like the moment that I showed you for this episode, like the best moment of it, like the best moment of this episode that I just showed you. So yeah, it's a cool episode as a whole for the development of Starscream and what it truly means to be an Autobot, because he does still kind of want revenge on Megatron for betraying him together with Trust and everything. So he's not as focused on saving the Minicons as he is on getting revenge on Megatron, but as a whole, he still is one of the good guys, and he still ends up following all the orders of Optimus. And it is a really cool episode. We once again have the Minicons singing, which is always a really cool moment for me. It's always so emotional and interesting to hear that. And I just love seeing all the Minicons get saved. Like, it's such a cool moment because we were kind of building up to it, I'm pretty sure, in like the previous episode. Well, not really, because the previous episode was him joining them, right? So I guess we weren't building up to it, but I feel like we kind of were in a way, because I kind of remember build up about it. I don't know whether it was maybe in the beginning of this episode or maybe at the ending of the last one, but it's just, there was definitely some build up of we're finally going to be fighting back hard against the Decepticons, and I really, really enjoyed that about it. But yeah, I love how completely wrecked the Decepticons get in this episode after losing all of the Minicons. It's just a cool story beat, this whole thing. And obviously it has, like I said, with Starscream, it has him still struggling with his feelings about whether he's truly an Autobot, he's truly a Decepticon. Like, it still has him struggle with whether he goes by what he has been all his life or choosing to be different. Because I feel like the story of Armada, in a way, with what Starscream goes through, is about whether it's nature versus nurture. Whether just because you're born a Decepticon, you have to be a Decepticon, or because you're born Autobot, you have to be an Autobot, or whether you can switch sides, because you have Starscream, who becomes an Autobot for a little bit, then you have Wheeljack, who becomes a Decepticon, and that is a really, really cool story beat that I feel like they definitely could have expanded on, but still the little that we did get in this series is really cool, because I feel like it's not quite so intentional as I feel like it should be, because like, who gets the idea to make Starscream get that story? You know, I feel like if they intended to have that story, they would have given it to somebody else on the good guy side, not necessarily on the bad guy side. But it did lead up to, from what I've heard, is the best incarnation of Starscream. So there's that. But yeah, at the next number 3, we're gonna have an episode that is far more personally favorite rather than actually really, really good. And this one is especially special for me, that being episode 19, Vacation. So the reason why this episode is special for me is because it has kind of I don't know how to describe it. Like, it has shaped me as a person, and it also has just some of the things that are the most satisfying things to see for me. Like, it's kind of weird to describe, but basically, I think the reason why I love this episode so much is because of my Asperger. Or Asperger, or however you're supposed to pronounce it. Because I'm not diagnosed or anything, but it's very likely that I do have high functioning autism. And the reason why that has to do with the episode is because this episode, as you can see, it's because this episode deals with a flood. And this might be the reason why over the years I've loved watching floods and loved watching the river that goes through my town overflow. Like, it's always been something really fun and really satisfying to watch for whatever reason. And it's always been something that has fascinated me, and I think the Asperger has something to do with it. Just like how the Asperger makes me enjoy trains so much, and playing with trains and looking at trains. Like, I don't know why. It's just a thing that fascinates me. But in addition to that, I love this episode because we have the main kid characters in this episode jumping from the Autobots and swimming in a river. And I think that might have been the reason why I, in this day and age, love going to swim and jumping off of stuff so much. Like, obviously, everybody enjoys doing that stuff, but I think this is the thing that prompted me to love those stuff. You know, because it was so cool to see them do that in this cartoon, and I wanted to do it myself IRL as well. So you have those two reasons why I love this episode. Then there's also the fact that in general the story of it is pretty fun. The kids go on vacation, shit goes down, there's a flood, some of the kids are trapped and they have to get saved from the flood. Like, it's very dramatic and very interesting. The atmosphere is really cool. I love rain, and I love the way the rain is portrayed here with, like, the flooding and everything. It's just so weirdly cozy for me, you know? And you do have that one scene where Billy and Fred are playing, like, card games as it's raining and everything. So this one just hits all the right spots for my autistic brain, I guess, is another way to put it. But I do really love this episode. Although not as much as the episodes at the second and first spot, which we're gonna get into in a second. And it's definitely not necessarily as high quality as those, and it's more of a personal one. But yeah, I do love it quite a lot. So at number 2, we're gonna have episode 39, Crisis. Yeah, this episode was sad as fuck when I was a kid. I definitely remember, at the very least, tearing up during this episode with Optimus's death. Especially because at the time when I did see that episode, I didn't have the rest of the DVDs. I'm pretty sure it happens in like no, it's not this one. It happens in this one. And the final episodes of this DVD is episode 40. So we had the episode where everybody is also dealing with Optimus's death. And I didn't have the 14 and the 15 disc, which obviously have Optimus alive, which kind of confused me and weirded me out. But I only saw the death, and it really fucked me up as a child. I can guarantee you that. And it also helps how much of the episode just has this foreboding disaster is about to happen kind of feeling, with like the visuals in the episode being really weird and really wild and really off because of Megatron using the the Hydra cannon, I think it was, on like a comet which causes anomaly in the weather on Earth or whatever. It just has this weird feeling, weird vibe throughout the whole episode. And then you have Optimus obviously kind of expecting that there's potentially he's going to die because Megatron is threatening to destroy Earth with the Hydro cannon. Like when I was a kid, that kind of shit was like obviously very impactful to me, and I honestly genuinely felt the fear of, hey, these giant robot aliens are pointing a weapon that could destroy the planet at us. I've definitely felt the fear when I was a kid, which is kind of fun to think about. But you also have the potential of like a comet or an asteroid destroying the planet, which when I was a kid was a genuine fear of mine, both because of the news surrounding like 2012 and everything, and just because when I was a kid I watched a lot of like Discovery Channel and like science-y channels, so I was very into those kind of stuff, so I knew the danger that that kind of stuff poses, so that also added some fear and threat in my head for when it came to this episode. And then you just see the way that he gets destroyed, like he sacrifices himself to protect the planet, and then you see his white hollow body burst into pieces. Like, it's so crazy that it happened to the point that even Megatron is shocked and can't believe that Optimus is gone, because they've had this rivalry for so damn long, and he gets destroyed. And I love how even in the following episodes he kind of misses Optimus, even in the episode where he does get restored. Like I'm pretty sure there's a scene where Megatron shows how happy he is that Optimus is back, basically saying to himself, "Welcome back, Optimus," or something. I definitely remember a scene like that, and I really, really like that. But yeah, I love the weight of his death. It's a shame how quickly he gets brought back, literally like 3 episodes later, but his death still holds a lot of weight, and I really, really like it quite a lot. And yeah, it's obvious why it's up here. I'm pretty sure we can all agree how good of a moment in this series this is. But that also brings me to what is number 1 on this list. That being episode 33, Sacrifice. And boy, where the hell do I even start with this episode? Just like episode 39 where Optimus dies, in this episode there's just this foreboding disaster is going to happen in this episode kind of feeling right from the beginning. And I goddamn love it. Maybe it's because I know what happens in this episode, but I'm pretty sure even when I was a kid, when I watched the episode for the first time, there's just this off feeling about it. There's just this foreboding feeling that something is going to happen and that it's going to be terrible. Because you have the Autobots out to fight the Decepticons, but for whatever reason, something is weird and something is not happening as it should be. And that is because the Decepticons are actually going to infiltrate the Autobot base once again to get the Requiem Blaster, which is being protected by Smokescreen. Who, by the way, can't understand minicons for whatever reason. That always kind of confused me a little bit, but whatever. But it's just the atmosphere of this episode is just so weird. And it's not only good because of what happens to Smokescreen, by the way. I still like it a lot because it also continues the development of Starscream's character by him being left behind or used as a decoy, shall I say, by the Decepticons to attract the Autobots out so they can get the Requiem Blaster. And that mistreatment of Starscream is just so emotionally captivating with the emotions that he feels. Then you also have the rain during that scene where you have Starscream scream his lungs out. There's a lot of screaming in this episode and it's so damn good. Like, if there's one thing you can say about this show that it's good, it's the goddamn voice acting. It's so good. Because you have Starscream's screams in this episode, the scream of rage and betrayal, Smokescreen's screams of pain and suffering, and Optimus's screams of sadness and anguish, and it's so good. Like, the voice acting is so damn good. And I already talked about what happens to Starscream and why I love it when I talked about episode 34, which was the number 6 on this list. So that's kind of where the Starscream stuffs end, but I do also like the episode because of him. But the biggest reason why I like it is obviously the death of Smokescreen, who, just like Optimus, does get brought back literally in the next episode, which is kind of annoying. But I think it's a little bit more justified than the Optimus death, because unlike Optimus, who got completely destroyed, no spark left, in the case of Smokescreen, his spark was still there. So you could still bring him back in a different body. Basically, as I understand it, the spark is their brain and heart kind of in one. And when Optimus died, his spark was also seemingly destroyed. Whereas here, we actually see it. We are shown the spark. So I can buy that his spark being put into a different body, or his actual body gets remodified and he's still alive essentially. But I cannot buy Optimus surviving the destruction of his spark. But yeah, man, this is such a brutal episode. It's kind of wild. And I wish more of this show was like that, because I feel like more people would respect it. Because it is kind of like every other cartoon in the early 2000s with its brutality, and I dig it for that. I really want more cartoons nowadays, even ones that are aimed at kids, that are this brutal. Because sure, we have some cartoons for adults that are brutal, like Harley Quinn or Invincible or whatever, but back in the early 2000s, if you tone down the violence that we see in some of these shows, I feel like you easily could make the argument that it's like the cartoons from the early 2000s. Like, if you look at the brutality in the TMNT 2003 series, or the brutality in Smokescreen's death here, like, it's not that far off. And it's kind of annoying how we've moved that kind of brutality to, like, adult stuff. Like, I watched it as a kid, and I fucking loved it. Some of my favorite memories are watching this kind of brutal stuff. I want more cartoons like that. Nowadays, all cartoons are so fucking removed from any kind of mature content that it's kind of sad. Like, whenever or if I ever have kids, I would have them watch the cartoons that I watched as a kid, not the modern crap. Because it's so sanitized, and I hate it for that. But yeah, I just love how brutal his death is. I'm gonna be probably talking extensively about it, but I just love it so much. How it shows his bravery, his resilience, and it's just so well animated, so well crafted, and just so brutal. Like, seeing the shot of the Requiem blaster hit him and then go through him first, and then get him pushed into the wall where he screams. Like, the screams, the animation is so good. And then you see him still standing up and fighting against Megatron and trying to get the blaster again, but then he gets shot once again. It's just so damn brutal, and I love it. And then you have afterwards everybody being sad about it, obviously, everybody saluting his sacrifice. And you have Optimus's scream of, like I said, anger, sadness, and anguish at his lost comrade. It's so damn good, man. It deserves 100% to be the number one episode of this show. Because it literally kind of has no bad thing about it. I love it. The atmosphere, the character moments with Starscream, the character moments with Smokescreen are all good. Some episodes on this list could have easily been at different places, and I have some positives and some negatives, but this episode is unequivocally, or whatever the word is, number one, the best episode of this show. And if you don't watch this show, just watch this first episode, because it's so good. But yeah, I don't really have an honorable mention really to give for this show. So yeah, I guess that's my list for top 18 episodes of this show. I feel like some of the placement of some of these episodes, in retrospect, could have been a little bit different because, for example, some episodes like the episode Drift, episode 46 Drift, where the kids kind of time travel, I feel like easily could have made it to the top 10 spot. But I feel like the way I've placed it right now, it's still a good descriptor of how I feel about the episodes of this show. With number 18 to 10 being more so episodes that are like really good, but I do not necessarily have the nostalgia and personal love for them. Whereas the episodes in the actual top 10 being the ones which are both good, but I also have like a personal attachment to it. So I think it's still a pretty good descriptor of the best episodes of this show, because honestly every single other one is not really interesting enough. There are some with some cool moments that I can really mention, like the episode where the yellow truck guy gets introduced, the guy who fights who is a double agent for the Autobots, while he's acting as a double agent for the Autobots when he's with the Decepticons, like Scavenger, who I do like a lot, but there's not necessarily much to say about the episode he gets introduced. He's just a cool character with a cool introduction and cool relationship with Hotshot. So that could have been, I guess, a honorable mention. I like Blur's introduction episode, like Scavenger when he gets introduced, like in his episode. Like Scavenger in his introduction episode. I don't think it's necessarily a good episode when he gets introduced, but I do like his introduction, the way it's portrayed. I like him as a character. I like his interactions with Hotshot. Like, that is all cool, but I don't necessarily feel like that episode is really cool or whatever. I like Blur's introductions episode. I like Sideways' introduction as well. Like, there's a lot of episodes like that that have cool moments, like I said earlier, but not necessarily deserving of a spot on this list. But yeah, I am curious though, what are your guys' top episodes of this show? I'm curious, maybe you guys have some that are different from mine, that you maybe are very passionate about. So make sure to do your lists in the comments down below. I'll be really happy to read them and have the discussion with you. And yeah, before we end this video though, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 6 patrons on Patreon. Omar Bridgman, Deadpool, Corby Dead, Edsap123, Soap193160, and Tia Rose Gelatly. Thank you guys for your support, I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me that you have decided to support me, you have continued to support me for such a long time. Hope you continue to enjoy my content and continue to support me going forward. Thank you very much. Another thing that I also want to tell you guys before we end this video is something about me that some of you may or may not already know, that will also explain why do I look and dress the way that I do in my videos. That thing being the fact that I am trans. In particular, I am somewhere between a non-binary person and a trans woman, though I am unsure at the moment and probably won't be sure until I talk to a professional who deals with trans people. But that is where the reason why I'm telling you all this comes. I need your help. Due to the fact that I live in a homophobic and transphobic Eastern European country, with a family that won't really ever accept the fact that I'm trans if they ever found out, it's not really feasible or easy for me to transition here with minimal to no repercussions. So that's why I would really appreciate any kind or any amount of support that you guys can give me with this. That said, I don't want to guilt trip you or anything. I don't want you to feel like you have to help me. So if you don't want to or you don't have the means to help out, that's okay. Don't feel bad. I just want you to know that it would be greatly appreciated if you did help me get out of this situation. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask me, and thank you for hearing me out. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, check out the link in the description to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories or simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Coffee account, where you can pledge your support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy. And I think it's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!